Too many. Yeah. Well, before we introduce the candidates, I'm just going to remind everyone that ORD2 does have, this is our general meeting. And welcome those of you that are on or that are coming on. We do have a couple of activities this week that we are hoping everyone will take part in. One is that we have our friend Daja, who's on the call here, has been coordinating, and Jeannie, right next to her, you guys are right next to her on my computer. You have been coordinating the letter writing to swing states, and you guys had a goal of 10,000 letters and you've reached 15,000. Is that right?
Wow.
Wow.
No, 16. Hold on.
Oh, you're muted.
For you.
Oh,
Try again, Daja. How
Say
many?
it again, you were muted.
16. Can you hear me? No.
Yeah.
Nine.
Now.
16,500.
Yay!
Okay. It'll be more as they come in.
Oh, great.
So from what I understand, somebody told me that Daja had not sealed any of the envelopes yet, so we're having an envelope sealing party at your house?
We sealed them and we stamped them. We're just gonna organize them and put them in the letter trays. And we might need some more stamps, but we'll see.
Perfect. That's 10 o'clock tomorrow in Medford. If you need a Zoom invite to that or whatever, let us know or send something to daja@dajadolan.com. We'll put it in the chat box.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday is the big send, in which case we're going to deliver them all to the post office. Starts at 11 o'clock at the Medford Armory, where everyone's invited to dress up their cars. Heck, you can dress up yourself if that's what you want to do. And get all patriotic, and we're going to have a caravan from the Armory to the Medford post office on Saturday.
And I'll drop in really quickly that today National Indivisible sent me a box filled with Windivisible t-shirts that I'm just going to hand out to participants. So come early.
Also at 11 o'clock, we're having a Zoom concert. So it'll be fun and frivolous for a half an hour.
And that's tomorrow, right?
Right.
Awesome. Well, we need a little bit of frivolity, if I can use that word, in these times. Everything is pretty intense right now. And slamming into what, 22 days or something like that, or who's counting? So with that, I'm going to welcome our amazing panelists tonight to the ORD2 general meeting for October. My name's Terry Martin. I'm on the steering committee, and I'm joined here by other steering committee members, Teresa Safé and Hillary and Kathy. And I think that's the only ones I can see on my screen at this time. This event is to talk to the candidates for state and federal races. And to kick it off, our Senator, did you have your hand raised, Tobias? No? Somebody said—
I was raising my hand when you said who's counting.
You're counting.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody who's running is counting, 22 days.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a video. So our Senator Jeff Merkley could not join us tonight, but he did make a special video just for us, which is awesome. And so I'm gonna let Hillary play it for all of you before we kick this off.
Hello, Indivisible, Oregon. I'm Senator Jeff Merkley. We're facing dark and difficult times, a global pandemic, an economic collapse, an important debate over ending systemic racism, fires that have devastated much of Oregon. And we have an authoritarian president hell-bent on dividing America and eliminating the checks and balances of our Constitution. Enough is enough. We must come together to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and end this Trump nightmare once and for all. And we must flip the Senate blue and take the Senate majority away from Mitch McConnell. And we can't forget about our own great state of Oregon and the changes we need to make here at home. We need to elect Shemia Fagan as our next Secretary of State, Ellen Rosenblum as Attorney General, Tobias Reed as Treasurer. And we need to work hard to get a walkout-proof majority in the Oregon House and Senate. So the next time Oregon Republicans try to walk out, They can't obstruct the important work that we have to do on housing and healthcare and education and the environment and equality. What you're doing right now, getting out the vote, talking to your neighbors, fighting for justice, it's so important to our nation's future. And every single one of you is a force to be reckoned with. You have the passion, you have the drive, you have the moral courage to get our country back on track. Keep making those calls, keep writing those letters, keep pressuring your elected officials. We have just 3 weeks to go until Election Day, the most critical election of our lifetimes. Our democracy, our government of, by, and for the people, and everything we hold dear hangs in the balance. So together, let's resolve to put our country back on track. Let's resolve to create a better future for all of us in this generation and the next after that. No matter what side of the railroad tracks you grew up on, the color of your skin, who you love, how you identify, how you worship, we're all in this together. So I'll leave you with 6 simple words. Dump Trump, ditch Mitch, save America. Let's go and get it done.
All right. Thanks to Senator Merkley for sending us that video. And with that, I'm going to introduce our first guest here, Ellen Rosenblum. Ellen is the Attorney General for the state of Oregon and wants to continue holding that seat if we all cast our ballots in her direction in 22 days. So Ellen, can you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about, first of all, what the Attorney General does?
Oh my gosh, what does the Attorney General do? That is a really great question. Thank you for asking it. But first, thank you to everyone for coming. It's really great to be with you. I miss coming down to Southern Oregon. I'll be honest with you. That's just what I do when I'm campaigning or just even when I'm not campaigning. And so it's been a strange experience to be doing everything virtually, but I've certainly been thinking of you. And in particular, I just want to say how sad I am about the loss of your towns, of your precious Phoenix and Talent, and the damage that has been done and the heartbreak. So, you know, I have to start with that, and then we'll talk about what AGs do. That seems sort of almost pedestrian by comparison, but it is an important job. And I think up until 4 years ago, I'm not sure during my first term how much people really thought about how important this job was. I think it was important. I think it always has been, because you're the chief law officer of the state. You represent state government. You represent all of the state agencies. My client is the state. I have one client, the state of Oregon. And so I am the lawyer for the state. So if the state gets sued, I defend the state. There's also opportunities for the state to bring lawsuits. Little did I know that would include suing the federal government over and over and over again. But you know what? I didn't have to go out and search for or seek new authority to do that. It turned out, as chief law officer of the state, when the people of my state are harmed, when they're damaged, when there's hurt that is directly caused by the federal government, I sue. Or if that's not necessarily gonna be the first thing I'll do, but if I can't resolve the matter, if I can't problem solve, which is what lawyers are also trained to do, then I can bring a lawsuit. And one of the best things has been the opportunity to work with my colleagues around the country. There are only 25 Democratic state attorneys general. I wish there were more, but there are 25. So half the states are represented by Democratic AGs, and we are all the chief law officers of our state. Some call each other the top cops. I actually prefer Mama Bear myself, because I think of myself as looking out for my cubs. And I can be ferocious if I need to be. If anybody gets between me and my cubs, I'm gonna go after them big time. And that's what it feels like I've been doing over and over with regard to this administration. And you know what? Even if Biden, and we hope he does, that Biden and my former colleague Kamala Harris are elected, and that will be a wonderful thing and a great celebration, but it's still going to take quite a while to undo the damage that's been done by this administration. And so it's going to be particularly important to have a state attorney general who is ready to go, who has the experience, who has the background and the support and the community that I've built up over the 8 years that I've been state attorney general in Oregon. And I've done that both locally. I feel like I have worked very hard to have the support of my constituents around the state. You know, I was kind of seen maybe a little bit as a city girl, but I've done everything I can to get out into the communities and to work closely with legislators throughout the state, with advocacy groups throughout the state, with Indivisible throughout the state. I love this organization, and I'm just so glad you exist, and I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing to, you know, to get out the vote, to send the postcards and the mailings. There's nothing more important right now. You know, Oregon, our precious Oregon is going to be okay. We have our problems. Even the Postal Service case, we had to bring that lawsuit against the Postal Service because they were trying to actually interfere with our vote by mail here. And we weren't going to stand for that, right? And we won. We've already gotten an injunction against those actions. You remember what the Postal Service was trying to do? They're not getting to do it anymore. But the fact of the matter is that we are so much better off here than in other states. And I get to work with my colleagues around the country. We have a project right now called the VPP, the Voter Protection Project. And we are lining up lawyers, not only state AG lawyers, but pro bono, free legal help to help with lawsuits that need to be brought or need to be defended against in every state in the country. And that is a part of the work of the C3 organization that the Democratic Attorneys General Association runs. So I am honored to be the co-chair of the National Democratic Attorneys General Association, because that's also what I think the Attorney General needs to do to make sure not only that our state's in order, but that our whole country is, and that we can expand the number of progressive AGs around the country so that in a few more years, hopefully there will be 30 and then 40, and who knows where we might go after that. Keep in mind that, and you know, Treasurer Reed can correct me if I'm wrong, but up until just a few years ago, there were very, very few Democratic state treasurers and state secretaries of state. In fact, Secretary of State, it was only 10 up until about 2 or 3 years ago. That is horrifying when you think about the role of the Secretary of State. What Shemia Fagan, when she's elected, is going to need to do is to be responsible for, at the end of the day, the redistricting of our state. And imagine getting that office in the wrong hands, the damage that can be done. And same with treasurer, how important it is to have a Democratic treasurer like Treasurer Reed continue in office, because he has the experience like I do to be able to do this job. And we work together. Tobias and I work together a lot. You'd be surprised how much we do together. We work on financial literacy issues. We work on securities fraud issues because we look out for the investments of our state. It's quite remarkable how much an attorney general does, but without the support of the community, without the work that I do at the legislature, helping legislators to craft legislation that's progressive and that's going to move us in the direction of equity and inclusion and an economy that frankly we're struggling with right now. Those are all areas that I, as state AG, even though I don't have a vote, I don't go and vote one way or the other, I actually have the right to initiate legislation. And I'm already doing that for the upcoming session. So it's a very big plate of authority and of actions. And frankly, I absolutely love it. So that's why I'm running for a third term. I want to continue to do this important work. And it's important to have someone in this role who's experienced and who has the passion for it and the progressive values. My opponent, I'll just say real briefly, I do have an opponent and he is a Republican. I have a libertarian opponent as well. Neither one of them strikes me as being ready to take on this job. If you want to hear more about them, I'll be happy to share.
Thank you. We do have a question in the chat box. We are, of course, watching the SCOTUS nomination process in the Judiciary Committee right now. Yes. And there is some concern about Roe v. Wade being overturned. If it is, will Oregon still be able to protect a woman's right to choose?
Oregon will, and we already do. And so we are one of those states where thankfully we have a law in place where we will be protected we hope. However, you know, we always have ballot measures. We always have attempts to change the law, even in Oregon. And that's why we have to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, because we can never take anything for granted. And if, you know, I'll just say it, if, God forbid, the United States Supreme Court undoes Roe v. Wade, like some other things that have happened recently, it's going to give the states permission to do things that they haven't been able to do up until now, even though there have been many, many, you know, restrictions all the time. There's so many more restrictions on reproductive freedoms now than there were, you know, 5 years ago, but not in Oregon. And thankfully, we're a state where I believe that I can tell you that we will be safe, but we cannot take anything for granted.
All right, we have just 2 minutes left or so for if any other questions, and if not, I always have questions. I'm an old journalist, so you know I've got a bunch in my back pocket.
Well, if I might also add on that, though, that I led 21 states in the Title 10 gag rule case, which is still ongoing. We just filed in the United States Supreme Court last week, wouldn't you know it? So another reason why we can't have Amy Coney Barrett, because I can just see it already, the 5-4 decisions. And unfortunately, the 5 is going to go the ways of the majority that's going to go against us on such important cases. The ACA case is up in a week after the election. This Title 10 gag rule case will be up before we know it. And that's a case that we really need to win, because that's a terrible rule. It's a rule that gags, that's why we call it the gag rule. It gags doctors and medical professionals from being able to tell their patients what their options are when they go to a family planning clinic. So there's, you know, and that did impact Oregon. And we had to, Planned Parenthoods had to in order to continue to abide by their ethical responsibilities, they had to give up their federal funding of Planned Parenthood. That's a huge deal for our state, huge. And so we need to undo that law. And the best way to do it, maybe the only way, because of what's happening with the Supreme Court, is to, you know, as Jeff Merkley, our wonderful senator, said, we must turn the Senate, because without turning the Senate, you know, first of all, we have the potential to have attempts to stop even a Democratic president from his judicial appointments, from having those go through, as we saw what happened with Obama. But we also have the possibility then of passing some legislation for once and for all. We can undo the gag rule. We can get rid of it. We don't have to rely on the Supreme Court. We can have Congress get rid of these horrible rules.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, Ellen. It's
Sure.
been wonderful to get to know you.
Thank you for having me.
We hope that we get to know you for another 4 years. We are planning on getting closer to you in the next 4 years, and maybe trying to right some of the wrongs that we've been dealing with for the last 4, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your question. I hope that I didn't go on for too long, but it was a great question, because it kind of opened the spigot to allow me to just kind of wax eloquent about the work, hopefully eloquent about the work that I do and that I love so much. Thank you all for everything you do and for having me tonight.
Thank you. And everyone, be sure to check out Ellen's website, which I'm sure you can find pretty easy, or if one of her people will put it.
EllenRosenblum.com.
There you go. There you go. Really easy. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to having our next conversation with you soon.
Thanks for having me. Take
All
care,
right.
everybody. Bye-bye. And
Bye.
vote.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
All right, our next candidate is Tobias Reed, who is the current Oregon treasurer and has been, I think, for just one term. Tobias, tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you're not. You're exactly right.
All right, so tell me what you do in your job.
Well, thanks for giving us the chance to be here. You may hear our second grade son in the background. That's how life is in COVID times, and we're all dealing with the multiple responsibilities we have. That makes it really nice for me to see some new faces in other parts of the state. And I was saying earlier, it's one of the few upsides of COVID that it's easier to get virtually around the state. I hope we can have at least a little bit of dialogue tonight, because it's really important for me to hear how you're all getting along in these crazy times. And our mission at Treasury has always been about increasing opportunities for Oregonians, improving the fairness of those opportunities, and building our shared resilience. One of the best things about being treasurer is getting to see people in their daily lives around Oregon. It's harder to do in these times, but I have been on the phone a lot. And a few weeks ago, I got to go visit the Holiday Farm Fire in one of the shelters for evacuees. That was not happy trip for a lot of obvious reasons, but it was really important for me to see how things are happening. And what I heard there fits with what I've been hearing on the phone. That is that people are nervous. Nervous about how to keep themselves and people they care about safe and healthy, nervous about their businesses, their employees, their jobs, and obviously nervous about how their finances are going to hold up in the recovery. All of us have a role to play in the recovery. And the question that I'm asking our team at Treasury is pretty simple. How do we play our part in helping rebuild an economy that is offering more opportunities for people who struggled in past recoveries? And how do we rebuild an economy that's more resilient, better prepared for whatever is next in our future? The good news is we're already doing a lot of that work at Treasury. And this is the answer to your question, Terry. We are the bank for the state and for a lot of local governments. We're the investment shop for those same groups. And we enable infrastructure around the state, the roads, bridges, schools, affordable housing, because we sell and manage all the state's debt, the bonds that we use to finance that infrastructure. And importantly, we're building a culture of financial resilience and empowerment. We're running the first of its kind program around state-based opt-out retirement savings plans in the country. And I hope you're as proud of Oregon as I am for this. No one else did it before us. We've now, 3 years in, got 75,000 people who have established and funded their own retirement savings account. That's a big deal anytime, and it's especially a big deal in a time like this because the way we set those accounts up, it allows people to use the proceeds or the deposits as an emergency savings account. We've also changed the way that we run the college savings plan to make it accessible to people in every income level and every geographic corner of the state. It bothers me that up till now, the people who tend to use them are affluent people from metro areas. They don't look like the whole state. And so we went to the legislature, and with Senator Fagan's help, we changed the tax incentive. It's a little wonky, but I'm a numbers guy, so I have to do this. A tax deduction is only useful to people who are itemizing their deductions. That's only about 1 in 10 in the last year. So refundable credit is more like the political tax credit a lot of people are used to. And that makes it relevant for everybody. Because here's the thing, any kid who has an account is 3 times as likely to go to college and 4 times as likely to graduate from college. It's not just about college, of course. These work at community colleges, trade schools, apprenticeship programs. But being able to say to every kid in Oregon that they are capable and worthy and we believe in them. I'm the state's chief investment officer, and I'm here to tell you that is the best investment we can make in Oregon kids. So these are just 2 of the things we're really doing to try to give people ways to deal with the financial, or at least some of the financial anxiety that they're obviously and understandably feeling. Going forward, we want to continue that conversation about how to give people the tools to achieve financial resilience. We want to continue a conversation about fairness to make sure we're creating opportunities everywhere, especially in rural communities, especially with the small businesses that are the engines of our economy, and especially those that are owned by women and people of color, veterans. We're not going to be able to create opportunities for everybody if we're not moving forward together. And the last thing to mention, and especially important in a time like this, and one of those places where being a numbers guy can come in handy, we've got a big opportunity when it comes to our debt capacity. Of course, we have to be responsible with it, but when unemployment is as high as it is now and interest rates are as low as they are now, we do a whole lot of good by getting after some of the deferred maintenance that's been accumulating, some of the rebuilding and repair work, and sadly, given the fires, some of the rebuilding work that needs to happen. So those are opportunities we should not miss. And I hope it comes through. I really love this job. It gives us not only the opportunity, but the responsibility to think way into the future. And there's no getting around the fact that we have challenges in front of us, but I'm still optimistic and hopeful. And it's not because I'm ignoring the challenges. I just see them as real opportunities. And especially in a group like this, it's easy to agree, I hope, that our opportunity and responsibility exists to help each other achieve our shared aspirations. And I know that's a challenge we're up for taking on together. So my message in advance of your question, and here I speak on behalf of General Rosenblum and Senator Fagan, please vote your entire ballot. Don't forget those of us in the middle. And I guess I don't really have to worry about all of you, but help us spread that message far and wide. I know everyone here is going to vote for president. I know everyone here is going to vote for county commission and all the local offices. But those of us in the middle sometimes feel a little overlooked. So help us spread that word too. And thanks for giving us a chance to be with you tonight.
I have a question. Why is it important to have you as a Dem in that position? How would it change if we had a Republican treasurer?
Well, I can't say how it would change for every Republican treasurer, but I can certainly say how it would change for my opponent. He does not understand the role of treasurer. He views it, from my observation, as much more of an ideological opportunity to talk about scapegoating public employees. He calls the investments I'm really proud to work on behalf of people saving for retirement and for college. He calls them pet projects. So I think it really does speak to the priorities and the attitude that we bring to the responsibility of the office. And I'm really proud of the record we've established to help people have those tools, to modernize and professionalize the way that we do our investments on behalf of retirees in the state. And I think there's a big contrast if you just look at the record of achievement that we both have. Okay.
We have a question in the chat from someone. I was going to ask about how the fires and COVID had impacted the state's budget, for example. I know we can't even predict what that's going to look like, right? COVID, we've been into 6 months and the fires have only been 1 month. But someone asked, is there help for rebuilding housing? And are the displaced people part of this planning? Because we lost 2,500 homes here, for example. Yeah. So how does the state step in to help? And I assume it's going to come. You're a numbers guy, so maybe you have a better answer than perhaps the legislators do right now.
Well, I wouldn't presume to say better. The governor asked Labor Commissioner Hoyle and I to chair Wildfire Economic Recovery Council, and we had our second meeting today. I think the way you asked the question is a good one, because even 6 months into COVID, it's not at all clear what the impact is going to be, and the intersection of these things, the fire, the question of how the world is going to look different because of COVID is not entirely answered yet. What we do know is that we have to look at our budget in sober ways. The governor and the legislature have difficult choices about how to use the resources that we have, which are not infinite. But I think it does give us a chance, and I hope we take it, to look at things differently. Even if we were able to magically and instantly recreate what existed before the fires, before COVID, I think we'd all agree here that there are some things that are less than ideal about that. So as we get to rebuild and reimagine, we shouldn't just be trying to get back to where we were. We can do things differently. We can do things better. And there are lots of examples of that. And I'm sure all of us, we could spend all of the time we have left tonight detailing that. But that's really, I think, the upside of what's otherwise really challenging as we deal with a lot of things that are gone and they're not going to come back in the same way. We can take a moment to be sad about that, but then let's also resolve to make things better as we rebuild them. All right. Does anyone have any more questions for Tobias? He's been so generous with his time this evening. I know how it is. You probably have dinner yet, right? That's true. I'm not as smart as Senator Fagan, who plans ahead. Oh, there you go. All right. Well, we really appreciate your time tonight, Tobias. It's been wonderful to get to know you, and we hope that we'll be getting to know you even better in the next 4 years. Pleasure. If we can help you in any way, we hope that you will reach out to us. That's what Indivisible does. Text me 38470. Just put my name in the text. Read. It's good advice too, and we'll be able to keep in touch as things progress. My opponent just gave himself $50,000 this week, so we're working hard to fill the rest of our media plan and get our message out. I feel really good about what we have to say. We just have to have the capacity to say it. So keep in touch with us would be a great thing. All right. Well, we will be recording this conversation so it goes out to all of our voters here in Southern Oregon and across our Indivisible network. So we just really appreciate your time this evening, and we wish you all the best. And we hope we're working with you for the next 4 years. Thanks very much. Thank you. Is Shemia here somewhere?
I am. Hi, Terry.
There you are. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
It's good to see you again.
Likewise.
Shemia is running for Secretary of State. She was currently, you were both in both the House and the Senate, is that correct, in the legislature?
Yes, and a school board.
And the school board. Okay, so like everybody else, you're starting off and you worked your way up to an amazing race for a Secretary of State. So tell us what the Secretary of State office does.
Well, you got it. First off, just because it is Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm actually at an Airbnb in Deschutes County, doing a couple days swinging through Bend, and I want to, on this Indigenous Peoples Day, acknowledge that I am coming, and I'm on the land, the traditional land of the Wasco, Warm Springs, and Paiute peoples. And, you know, I actually grew up in rural towns in Wasco County. And so first off, I just want to acknowledge, you know, the fires that have been spreading throughout our community. And I just want to say that for any of you that are affected, I know, Terry, that your family business was affected. I mean, beyond affected, was, you know, burned down. And so for anybody who has experienced that, I know that, you know, my heart breaks for you. And I know that we all share in that heartbreak for our neighbors who have lost, you know, loved ones, homes, beloved pets. I've heard some devastating, as a pet lover, I've heard some devastating stories of some lost pets or just irreplaceable belongings, things that you can't get back. And so, you know, as someone who grew up in very similar little towns in Wasco County, you know, seeing little towns like Talent and Phoenix and Detroit be essentially destroyed really breaks my heart. And so just want to kind of acknowledge that to start with. And as I mentioned, I grew up in the Dalles and Dufur. And my dad was a single parent. He was a staunch Republican and a single parent. And my mom was kind of in and out of our lives because she battled meth and opioid addiction for most of my life and was homeless in primarily in the Portland area. And but my dad was raising my two older brothers and me by himself. And the summer before I started second grade, Mom took us on a camping trip. I remember camping an 8 Mile Creek in Dufur for a few weeks, catching crawdads, you know, roasting marshmallows, sleeping in a big family tent. And it wasn't until many years later that my brothers told me what had really happened, that we had been evicted from our house in the Dalles and we had nowhere else to go. And that my dad didn't want us to know that we were homeless. And so he took us on a camping trip while he found a place for us to live. And that's when we eventually moved into a trailer in Dufur. And so, you know, it's experiences like that and many more that have animated my career as both a civil rights attorney and an Oregon lawmaker to just really fight for other families who are hanging on by a thread, passing policies like paid sick leave and raising the minimum wage, and also creating the Office of Small Business Assistance in the Secretary of State's office. Because we know here in Oregon as a small business state that folks by a thread are folks who have poured their life savings and mortgaged their house and put that into an idea and a dream of owning their own business. And so I was proud to create that office my first term in the Oregon House. And also expand access to our democracy, right? Which is what it's all about, from automatic voter registration to finally entering Oregon into the National Popular Vote Compact. If anyone wants to nerd out, I would be happy to talk about that with you. And most recently, actually putting prepaid postage on our ballots. But here's the deal. When I first announced my campaign for Secretary of State, I quickly learned that most people have no idea what the hell this job is. One of my older brothers, out in Templeton, a union welder, was like, Secretary of State, so you're gonna get other people's coffee? Like, no idea what the Secretary of State does. So I at least like to start there without presuming any knowledge about what this job is. As you asked, Terry, what does the Secretary of State do? In my view, this job is about making sure that government works for everybody. From auditing state revenues to make sure that they are making, and programs to make sure they're making a real difference in the lives of people who need them most. Conducting our public records in a way that keeps our government open and transparent and does the public's business in public, right? This year, likely conducting redistricting, and I have committed to doing that using a People's Commission, which is like an rooted in racial equity and justice. And can you guys hear me? I just lost my earbuds. Do you hear me okay?
Yep.
And also, of course, at the core of it all is running elections that are fair and secure. And sadly, that's gotten more attention than ever this time, even though we've worked with vote by mail here in Oregon for over 20 years. In fact, I'm a 1999 graduate of the Dallas High School. I've never voted any other way than vote by mail. And something the president is out spreading
spreading lies about vote by mail. And the bottom line is, as we all know, vote by mail is the most boring topic in Oregon politics. Come on, people. Like, we don't even think about it. It works so well. And suddenly it's all over the national news with the president making false claims about it. And so I have been the only one between me and Senator Thatcher, my opponent for this fall, willing to say unequivocally that claims of widespread voter fraud are a myth. And they're a myth spread by people who just want to make it harder for certain people to vote. And in fact, I don't quote conservative think tanks very often. It's not typically in my repertoire, but I do when I'm defending vote by mail. And the Conservative Heritage Foundation actually did a comprehensive overview of Oregon's vote by mail system, going for over 20 years, back to 1998 when we had our first all vote by mail election. And the Conservative Heritage Foundation, out of 15.5 million ballots, found 14 instances of voter fraud. It's literally less than 1 in a million. And to put that in perspective in terms of how safe vote by mail is, how many of you drink coffee at any time during the day or week? Okay. Rita really likes coffee, I can see. It's like very enthusiastic. Well, vote by mail is safer than drinking coffee because the FDA allows up to 5% of your coffee beans to have some mold in them. But like, your coffee's still good. Enjoy it tomorrow morning. I'll enjoy mine. It's safe. It's good. The FDA has said it's safe. How many of you eat chocolate? Now you're afraid to raise your hands. Okay. Vote by mail is safer than eating chocolate. Because the FDA allows up to 1% of your cocoa beans to have insect bug parts. But I just had some chocolate in a bit. I'll have some more chocolate later today. So I like to just put that in perspective, because vote by mail is literally less than 1 in a million ballots cast has voter fraud. And so I'm running for Secretary of State for many, many reasons. But here in Oregon, to make sure that we continue to enjoy our coffee and continue to enjoy our chocolate and continue to enjoy vote by mail and help other states learn how to do vote by mail as well.
Awesome. Well, if vote by mail is pretty much secure, then what are the big issues that you will be dealing with, Shemia?
Well, the first one is, actually, because is secure, we need to kind of make sure that we kind of restore that faith for Oregon. Right, we have the president out there spreading lies about vote by mail. So particularly for a lot of folks that, in Oregon might, follow the president or be susceptible to believing what he has to say, we need to kind of share that information about what makes vote by mail so safe in Oregon. Forensic signature verification, ballot, unique barcode tracking, paper ballots, and all of that that makes it really, really safe. But it's beyond kind of undoing the damage done by the president. The audits division is incredibly important, and I will audit the Oregon Employment Department. I have been made no bones about the fact that it's simply unacceptable that so many Oregonians who have paid into this insurance benefit, many folks for their whole working lives, finally actually need to use it to pay for groceries and childcare and gasoline and prescription medications, and suddenly they're not getting their checks for months and months. So I'm going to audit the Oregon Employment Department, find out what went wrong, so this never happens again. And then another audit that we have to do is of our emergency response. And this will be a very comprehensive audit that is across multiple agencies, similar to the public records audit that Secretary of State Gene Atkins did back in 2015. Because not just for COVID, but also for wildfires. I've heard, as I'm sure you've read, stories of folks in Southern Oregon who never even got the emergency evacuation alert. They evacuated because they heard folks talking outside their window or had somebody knock on their door. So we need to do a comprehensive audit of our emergency response and be prepared for either the next wildfire season, the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, or sadly with the way that climate change is going, with our next pandemic.
We've had a lot of talk down here about the emergency response system and how many people had to evacuate because police were knocking on their door or driving down their streets with bullhorns. So I'd be very interested in what the state can help us learn from that perspective. And then let's talk about redistricting, because I was told that it was so important to get you in, Shemia, because if a Republican Secretary of State was to take this position, and if the redistricting was to come up in the legislature and there was another walkout, that the redistricting would fall to the Secretary of State, in which case it would actually impact us for the next 10 years. Did I understand that correctly?
Very possibly, yes. So first off, I'm sorry if you broke up a little bit there, but I did get your question, and I'm sorry if that was on my end. I normally am plugged into an Ethernet, but I'm at an Airbnb in Bend. But the way redistricting is currently done is that the legislature, it either falls to the legislature or the Secretary of State, but the legislature has a hard July 1st deadline that is set in the Constitution. If they can't do it by July 1, it goes to the Secretary of State. So there's a couple of issues at play here. Number one is if Kim Thatcher were to win, it's all but guaranteed the Republicans will walk out in order to shut down the session. So the legislature can't do redistricting so that Kim Thatcher could do it unilaterally. But I think it's likely that I would even do redistricting if I win and Kim Thatcher doesn't, because the census is based on the census, and normally the census data comes to the states in April, but the US Census Bureau has said we need more time because of COVID. And there is bipartisan legislation in the Senate to extend those deadlines. There will be lawsuits over those deadlines. But the deadlines, if they are extended, they wouldn't even give the information to the states until July 31st. So it would potentially skip the legislature entirely, which is why I am giving some serious thought to what I would do if I know in December or January that I'll actually be conducting redistricting, because I think that we need to do it differently. Oregonians have been pretty clear they don't want the legislature drawing their own boundaries, which I completely understand. The concerns I had about IP 57, which was the independent commission that was proposed, is it's a carbon copy of an independent commission model in California, which had diversity and equity goals about who serves on the commission that they have completely missed. And it's primarily older white men who were able to do essentially tedious government work for free who've served on that commission. And so I proposed more of a people's commission, similar to what Tony Evers proposed in Wisconsin, which is rooted and grounded in racial equity, not just goals, but racial and equity requirements. And I think a key of that is paying folks to do the work, right? The legislature gets paid every day that the legislature is in session to do some of this more tedious work. I think that Oregonians should be paid a fair stipend also to do that work.
All right. That's a good answer. Thank you very much. Do we have any other more questions for Shemia before we let her go off into her evening, where I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure people haven't had dinner yet, but any other questions that I can see?
Can I address Jeannie? Jeannie sent me something. She says first that she thought chocolate was vegan, which is hilarious because now it has insect bug parts. But second, privately you said to me that we need Shemia signs, and can I just say thank you, because I'm gonna lift the hood a little bit here. This is the age-old fight between candidates and campaign managers. I'm like, I want lawn signs, I want the swag, and they're always like, no, we can't quantify the data with signs. But because you guys have been squeaky wheels, and counties throughout the state have been like, no, damn it, we need lawn signs. We just ordered 1,000 more that we're hoping to push out, like they have to ship. There's a whole complicated process. But yes, we will definitely get them down to the Jackson County Dam. So thank you for being on my side on Team Swag, because we need some swag. And it took me forever, but my campaign manager finally broke down and ordered more lawn signs. And yes, we're going to get them down to Jackson County.
Perfect. Shemia, can you put your contact information in the chat, please, so people can find your website and contact you, or do whatever we need to do to make sure we're on your team and that we give you all the support that you need and deserve?
Yep, I'm going to put my cell phone number in there. That's just directly to me. Texting is easiest, but I do occasionally check voicemails. And then, yeah, Bryn looks like they're adding in a bunch of stuff on there as well. Shemia for Oregon. Perfect. Okay.
Right. And I'm just going to, before you leave, I'm going to point out that we have a Harley connection, right?
That's right. Yeah, but when I used to be cool, back before I had kids, I used to ride a Dyna Super Glide, and I learned about Terry's Harley Davidson dealership. And my favorite was I used to ride at veterans' funerals with the Patriot Guard riders. Yeah. So we would do flag lines, and then we would occasionally also go to Portland International Airport and welcome vets home who were coming home from overseas. And we would kind of do flag lines and stuff. It was primarily me and a bunch of 60-year-old Vietnam vets, and it was awesome. So yeah, I miss my motorcycle, but I don't know when I would have time to do that anymore with an 8-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. So I stick to the bicycles now. But yeah, my campaign team, I always joke with them. I've got several pictures of me in my full leathers and all the gear all the time, right? Safety. And I always slip those in and try and sneak those into campaign pieces. And they're like, no, you know, just, they're so funny. So I know, it's funny how
I'll send you my campaign video that has me on the motorcycle. And then I'll just tell you that
I gave you some money and I Googled you. I love your video.
Good. And then I'll just tell you that I really started riding again after my daughter, my oldest one turned 16, was getting her driver's license. So when I figured if she's got wheels, it was time for me to go back. So you just count the years, and when you're ready, you call me.
There you go. Yeah, I got about 12 and a half more years. There we go. There we go. I like it. Hey, thank you all. I know you guys are one of the more active chapters of Indivisible. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be literally in Deschutes County right now. We're gonna have a debate tomorrow night on the Bend TV station. I'm sure they'll stream it live as well. But I'm here because we did an event with Wyden today, a rally with Wyden, and then we're doing tomorrow night a debate for the local Bend news station. So we'd love to have you watch. Coin.com. We had a debate last week that went really well. They've got that on their website, coin.com. It's part 1 and part 2. But we got to keep working at it and making sure we raise that name ID, because it's really tough running for your first statewide office in a pandemic with a president who sucks up all the news oxygen in the room every single day.
Well, we're behind you, and we hope that we can give you lots of support in the next 22 days. How about that?
It sounds good. And I'm going to get you some lawn signs. Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Shemia. Really appreciate it. You have a lovely evening.
Thank you all.
All right. And finally, our last candidate for the evening, although I'm going to acknowledge that Kat Stone is on the call, and I know she's running for state senate. I believe it's District 1. Anyway, I'm going to wave at Kat, and maybe at the end of the call, she can check in and say hi to everybody. But our last candidate officially tonight is Alex Spenser, and she is running for Mr. Walden's seat, District 2 in the U.S. Congress. And if she will unmute herself, I've got her on here twice on my screen. Are you here, Alex?
I am here. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. I've had these issues with the computer today, and so actually all day, all of the Zoom calls up until this one, it crashed, and then it's old, but it's a Mac, so you know it's kind of like you can't let go of it. So anyway, here I am.
I think we've got gremlins tonight because mine's freezing up too, and so we're all kind of trying to work through it. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex, and you as a candidate.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for having me here tonight. It's just, you know, I'm so grateful for all of the exposure, and it's really an interesting time, right, during COVID, and the way we're having to change the way we do everything. I was slightly ahead of the curve because of my virtual town hall that began back in January, but then we've gotten so much better at it, and so much, you know, we know more and more and more. And in fact, I did an interview today with the EO Alive out in LeGrand, and his was the very first interview I had done over Zoom. And what's interesting about that is that the reason I had to do it then was I was iced in. I was in Pendleton and I couldn't get over that hill. Anyway, so it's just such a joy to be here, and I really appreciate it. And who am I? I am someone who understands what it is to, you know, live life in the trenches. I'm a single mom, brought up my daughter, homeschooling her to the 5th grade, and then really just being able to be there for her was my primary goal. On top of that, I'm an activist. When I see something that needs to be done, I just step in and do it. I was one of the co-founders of the Klamath Force for Peaceful Action, which was an Indivisible group until it merged with Klamath Indivisible. And I also, you know, was the founder and led the Women's March in Klamath Falls for 3 years. And so that's who I am. I kind of jump in and do the work that needs to be done. In fact, my very first interview when in all of this in an actual TV radio station was out at KOBI there in Medford. And when you walk into this place, it's really interesting because they've got this big table, right? It's like a cocktail table, but it's 3 feet in diameter, and these great big old hairy chairs. And for someone like me who is vertically challenged, climbing into this chair is a thing, right? So you sit in the chair, and and there's no place to put my feet, and I'm just going, okay, I'm a little uncomfortable. Do you mind if I if I fix this? And he said, well, you know, just know that when you adjust it, it'll go down really fast. I'm like, that's not it. It's my feet. The little stand isn't there. And do you mind if I try it? And he said, oh, sure, go ahead. So I basically fell off the chair. Did a little more graceful than that. And I reached down and I pulled up the footrest and I put it in its place and I made sure it was sturdy and I stepped on it and I got back up on the chair and I sat there and said, okay, I'm ready. Thank you so much. I feel so much better. And he said, Alex, 1,000 people have sat in that chair and every single one of them has complained about it. You are the first one who has done anything about it. You are a problem solver. That's why you're running for Congress. So yes, that's why I'm running for Congress. It's the next thing. It was presented to me and I jumped on the opportunity. Well, okay, not jumped on, slowly moved into the opportunity. And I think it's gone pretty well so far. So I'm just really excited to be here and it's just so fun. It is a very long, very expensive, very fun job interview. And I think it's the best thing ever. And I know that I am the best candidate and that I will be your voice in Congress.
Alex, why are you the best candidate? Tell us that.
I am the best candidate because I want to be your voice in Congress. It is time that we have leaders who are willing to do the hard work of communication, who are willing to stay in the room and do the work and understand the work and really do it for the people of Congressional District 2. We have lacked leadership in CD2. We have lacked someone who is our voice. As Democrats, we know that whenever Mr. Walden came to town, it was always a big surprise. And we ran to go to the last minute because the only ones he told were the Republicans. And so that's all he wanted to talk to. That's the only people he ever wanted to speak to. And Mr. Bentz is exactly the same. In fact, Mr. Bentz, his entire platform is pro-Trump, pro-guns, pro-life. And, so every single time Mr. Trump opens his mouth, it's really great for my campaign. I'm really grateful for that and only that way. And yet Mr. Bentz he's an interesting guy. Shemia's talking about the debates and the forums and, we can't get a debate together for some reason. There have been 5 scheduled and Mr. Bentz has refused to even answer the call. So I know that the League of Women Voters is a little upset at Mr. Bentz right now. So again, everything he does, every time he opens his mouth, it's just good for my campaign. So why am I the best candidate? Because I'm going to be your voice. And I've been there and I am there. And when I hold a virtual town hall, everyone is welcome. There's a phone number on my website that when it rings, I'm the one that answers it. I will talk to you. I will learn what the issues mean to you. While I'm a relatively intelligent person, I certainly need to know a lot more. And I need to know how the issues relate to you and your life so that I can bring that information and work for you. I want to be of service to the people of Oregon. And the most important thing, and while I was traveling around, talking to folks, the most important thing to a person was ending the divisiveness in Congress. And that is exactly what I'm qualified to do.
Every freshman in Congress has some kind of an idea of what they might want to change first. Do you have an answer to that question?
Yes, absolutely. I've got a couple answers to that question. What I'd really love to do is create a congressional committee for communication, a place where members can go and really talk through the issues, hold more than one idea at a time. We deserve this kind of leadership, and we deserve leaders who are willing to do that work, do the communication, understand all of the issues and all facets of the issues. And listen, this would you like my flag? Anyway, this flag, it's red and it's blue and in equal amounts. And I think there's a reason for that. I am purple and we need all of the voices. We need to hear everyone's point of view. And we need to understand that we're not that far apart. We're really very, very close together. We all want the same things. We want clean air, clean water. We want energy that's renewable and that will work for everyone going into the future, for our lives and for our livelihoods. It's time that we have people who are there for the good of everyone, who want to care about everyone, make sure everyone has health care and a home and all of the things that we need to thrive. It's time for everyone to thrive rather than just survive.
Well, I'm sorry that Mr. Benz has not answered your call for debates. We would love to see you come into Southern Oregon next time you're around, and we could, well, it's hard to do hosting a meet and greet, but we'd love to spend some time with you. I just say that perhaps we can do it the way we used to do it with Mr. Walden, and we'll just have an empty chair there, and then we, you know. We'll ask the questions just like we used to do.
I just read a wonderful article in The Atlantic that talks about COVID and how it spreads. And it turns out that it rarely spreads from person to person. It's always in a mass event. It's always in the big spreader events. And so if we meet, we can meet at a distance with masks on. Masks are going to be the panacea, and we know it. The thing is airborne. As long as it doesn't get into the air and doesn't get to us, then we're all okay. So in fact, I just did a town hall out in Mount Vernon, out in, and Karina was there with me, and we did this great town hall out in a park, and it was just so much fun. And then yesterday, I was able to do, what was that today? Gosh. Yeah, yesterday, it's crazy. It's so much. Yesterday, we had an event here in Ontario, and Ontario is where Mr. Benz is from. And so it's very interesting. And what's more interesting is, as I was coming into Ontario, 5 minutes out, the first sign I saw was mine. So that's
nice.
Yeah.
Well, we have a question from one of our steering committee members. Would you like us to start hounding Mr. Benz to make sure he has a debate with you in the next 22 days?
That would be very, very cool. Yes. I actually, what I'd love is, you know, to get it out to the media. You know, where is he? Where's Mr. Benz? You know, he's wanting to follow in Walden's footsteps. Well, he's doing a fine job of it.
I think that's a wonderful point. I think all of you letter writers out there should take heed of that, and we need to help Alex get him up on the stage so we can actually make an informed decision. So we would totally support that, Alex. And we hope that if you have any events coming up or whatever, that you let us know. Please let us know with ORD2, because we send out daily calls to action and have a newsletter every Sunday. If there's anything coming up that you'd like us to attend, we'd be happy to get that in there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
All righty. Are there any more questions at this point for Alex? Anybody? Then I'd like to recognize Kat Stone. Thank you, Alex, for all of your time, your effort, and for running. We know that stepping up is a huge step in anyone's life, and it's not easy, but we are behind you all the way. And we wish you all the best.
Please go to Spenser2020.com and donate, please.
All right, put it in the chat box. Everybody can just click on it and save it, bookmark it.
Thank you.
So before we leave, like I said, I noticed that Kat Stone is on the call. Kat, would you like to unmute yourself and say hello to everyone?
I would like to say hello to everyone. Awesome. And boy, I can identify with Alex's moment there where, oh, was that yesterday or was that Monday? I have no idea where I am so much of the time. I'm working full time, kind of, during the flu season. So I give flu shots all over the state. We came back from Bend tonight, and I just happened to see on Facebook that you guys were meeting, and I did so want to see you guys and say hi. And I wanted to see Shemia, and I wanted to see Alex, because I've heard a lot of good stuff about her.
All right. Well, tell us about your district that you're running for.
My district is Southern Douglas County, very southern Coos County, all the way down to the California border, and then the north side of the Redwood Highway, which means I have a lot of trees. So it runs all the way across around Merlin, but I have some Grants Pass stuff, but I don't have Merlin Town. I don't have very many towns at all. I don't have Grants Pass, but I do have Port Orford, Gold Beach, Brookings, Roseburg. That's the big one. And I do have some notoriety in Roseburg because I've been following the commissioners for 6 years. I attend every week the Wednesday meetings, and I'm the government watchdog. I ask questions for the citizens, and I don't care if it's a stupid question or a smart question. I'll ask the question and see if they answer it. So I got elected to the transportation board that was just newly formed. I got the second highest numbers of votes out of a field of 15. And so people know who I am, and I'm really banking on that and meeting new people, working with the different Democrats in all the different counties. So I have Coos County, all of Curry County, the western half of Josephine County, and the very, very tip top of Jackson County, which is Evans Creek Road and Pleasant Creek Road.
Wow.
And it's East Evans and West Evans Creek Road, and it does not include Weimer, which is crazy. So,
that's a huge district, really.
Oh yeah, it's got a lot more trees than people.
Yeah, and it's hard to get to too. I mean, just trying to get from, from where we are over to, from Evans Creek, really, to get over to the coast is a trek in itself, right?
Yep, yes it is. So, but I've been there. I've put my signs up this week. We just got 100 more signs. I'm not anywhere near 1,000 signs, but my district isn't as big as Shemia's.
Yeah.
So I'm running on the Harvest Severance reinstatement, where in the 1990s, they told us it was about a bird. But in fact, the bird only accounted for 25% of the loss of money to communities from timber. 75% of what we lost was from private timber who used to pay property tax, and they got their property tax reduced 95%. And then they used to pay harvest severance. And in California, it's 3.5%. In Idaho, it's 3.5%. In Washington, it's 5%. And they have an 80-20 arrangement where 20% of it the state gets to keep and 80% goes back to the communities where the logs were cut. So that and foreign ownership of so much of our land that used to be public land is a big problem. They don't pay any taxes, neither federal nor state. So they're just basically a parasite on our communities.
Are you one of the candidates that's being targeted by Timber Unity?
Oh, of course. Dallas Hurd is my opponent, and he's their spokes dude. And when he speaks, he doesn't make any sense at all. He would have made a better preacher, I think, but his daddy's rich and his grandma's rich, and they just got him into the legislature with their rich friends. So I'm hoping that people will at least hear the message. And I know that there's a lot more people working on reinstating harvest severance, and that's very heartening for me. So I feel good about it. I feel like if I stick to the finances and not the emotions, that people who are tired of Dallas that might happen to be red people might vote for me because I make sense.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for showing up tonight. We're glad that you're able to share your message, and we hope that all of you out there who have friends who live in Senate District 1, I believe that's what it is, you'll encourage them to support Kat. And if there's any way we can find out more about you, your website or whatever, please enter it in the chat for us, Kat, so that we can
I will
support your candidacy.
Thank
right.
you.
Well, ballots will be mailed out on, I believe, Friday the 19th. Who's counting? So it's going to be time for all of us to really kick into gear and support these candidates. I really am incredibly thankful to everyone who showed up tonight. I learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to our next meeting in November, which is after the election, which we hope will be a celebration for all of these candidates. If you have any questions, concerns, whatever, you can always reach out to ORD2. We'll answer anything that you throw at us. And we're happy to hopefully put together as many events as we can in the next couple of weeks. I mean, in our pages so that you can support these great candidates. So,
Good luck to you, Terry.
thank you, Alex.
Hey, I want to throw out to everyone that in the last couple of minutes, I reached out to Cliff's Facebook page and just started to ask him why he is afraid to debate Alex. And I think all of us should do that right now so he gets a whole bunch of those requests right there in his inbox.
Totally. I mean, that's what we do, right? We hold people accountable.
And the other thing I told him was, do you know that Mr. Walden retired because he got our wrath? Are you ready for it? So let's go. Let's do what we do, people.
All right. And if we have a phone number too. Everybody reach out and do what you can do. Let's make Mr. Ben step up and do the right thing. How about that?
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, everybody. It has been a long evening and we just appreciate everybody being here. Thank you. I love you all. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for coming, everyone.